Sengupta, I invited Professor Lavanya Vemsani to have a conversation with me today. Not only is the professor a very well-known, professor of history, she's a distinguished professor at the Shawnee State University in America and also sits on the board of the Ohio History Academy. But she's also a very distinguished NRI. She's a non-resident Indian and very active in NRI causes. So I wanted to talk to the professor today on one significant issue that has really, caught attention and is being debated again and again. Should NRIs, should non-resident Indians, or should I say PIOs, people of Indian origin, should NRIs or people of Indian origin get the right to vote in an Indian election? This is particularly important because, of course, many of the NRIs have this PIO card, which enables them to travel wherever they want to India, work in India, everything but the vote. So should the vote really come? And it becomes complicated because many of the spouses and children of NRIs also who may not be Indians themselves, but also have the PIO card. So how do we think this through? For all that, Professor Lavanya Vemsani, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Hindolji, for the great discussion on a very hot topic.
Let me begin by asking you then, Professor. In your opinion, NRI should get the vote, but it's a complex issue.
Right. It is a very complex issue because we have Indians going abroad from 1880 onwards and settling down in many countries. Of course, we have also indenture where people were taken forcefully to many countries, Africa and Guyana and Fiji. So we have, and of course, people willingly going to Africa and Canada and United States. So we have Indians dispersed for a long time, for almost more than 200 years, I would say, have traveled across the world. So we have substantial amount of population spread across the world. And as you have already known, I was a proponent, supporter for adding Roma also to the OCI category. So we have a number of categories of people spread across the world. The indenture, the forcefully taken Roma, and the newer NRIs of the 20th century, the tech emigres. So we have a number of categories. So how do we think about it? And at any one time, we have a number of Indians with Indian citizenship also working abroad in the media, in the embassies, in the different workforce, electricity, shipping, all these different sectors, building sector also in the Middle East. So we have a number of people working who are still citizens of India. So we have people who have traveled already abroad and have become PIOs and all that. And we also have citizens who are still citizens and may return at a later time, who hold, who are temporary residents in other countries. So how do we know what to do? What can we do? What is in the best interest of the people that are abroad? What is in the best interest of the country that we are considering here, India? And what is its effects on the countries that they have moved to? So we have different countries doing different things with regard to immigrants, but we can think about it. It's complicated issue, but we can think about it. There should be a way to include NRIs into the Indian political spectrum.
Talk to me about the the demand for this. Do you think in NRI communities, especially in countries like America or England, where the NRI community, especially America actually, which is really the home to the most influential NRI community, the wealthiest minority in America are now Indians or people of Indian origin. The most well-educated are people of Indian origin. Do you think there is this demand for getting the right to vote in their home country is rising?
It is rising.
Why do you think that's true?
It is rising. Many NRIs are very positively positively and negatively also, all forces are involved with India. So they are interested in participating in Indian political arena. So when we are talking about voting, they're also, the next step is they are also interested in contesting. So we have to think about that also. So there are many NRIs interested in participating in direct democracy in India. That is for sure. That is well known across the spectrum. In the Western nations, especially in the UK, US, there is considerable interest in participating in the Indian democracy. But the concern is, should it be given like a blanket slate for everyone, or should it be it should go in a slow step? Right now, the embassy personnel and other service personnel have a facility to vote in the embassies. Could that be extended for NRIs who are still holding Indian passport as a first step? If that can be done, the other steps can be taken later, depending on how this goes. If India wants to consider it in a slower pace. But taking the blanket slate and giving political right to everybody across the spectrum might be a little bit concerning. Because of the wide array of the population, Indian population that is spread across the world from 1800s onwards. So that might be a little bit concerning, but taking slower steps and then arriving at a point where it can be extended or it can be expanded would be a good step.
I'm glad you mentioned positive and negative, Professor, because some of the concern, as you of course recognize, about this process is that it's all very well. I mean, we all want, people like you and Satya Nadella and Sundar Pichai and all these amazing people who are well educated, who are really pillars of society, and who would, obviously want to contribute in many ways to their, in a sense, their home countries or where they have come from, to participate more actively. And if, like you say, they are still holding Indian citizenship, then perhaps also vote. But the flip side of that is there may be many people who continue to hold an Indian passport, uh, but who live overseas, who may be, or several people at least, who may be involved in extremely dubious activity. I mean, for instance, consider the Khalistan movement, right? I mean, which is sort of snaked up its head again in places like Canada, in the UK, including in some parts of the US. Also, other sort of nefarious candidates who try to sort of stoke up the Kashmir issue, and so on and so forth. I mean, all kinds of people, right? Um, how does one balance that? That's the question a lot of people ask. I mean, it's great if all the good people are part of a bunch and, you figure out how to do with them. But, I mean, there is this sort of, bunch in that, in that spectrum too. And how does one think through this?
Right. That's the biggest concern. There is negative forces. Of course, there are people positively involved with India, but there are also people negatively involved with India. So there is that concern. However, we can think about countries like US here. US actually allows this overseas voting. There is a application process, overseas application. They have to provide a residence in India, a residence that they maintain. So a residence that they maintain will be their residence, and that's where their legal status will be. So establishing a real connection to the land where they are trying to vote is also important. So if voting is provided to overseas citizens, initial step should be only for those who maintain connection with their home or with their residence wherever they are from. It may be extended later, I'm not against voting. Philippines does that. Philippines allows everyone to vote because Philippines has dual citizenship process. So any Filipino residing anywhere can vote. And that hasn't resulted in any negative results for Philippines. Philippines hasn't folded itself into half. So when applied cautiously, that might be useful. But the first step, I think, should be cautious. We should follow US in putting procedures in place, in having overseas application and evaluate it through the embassies, and the voting to be considered by this separate administration administered from the embassies. So we already have a process that allows and evaluates service personnel and others to vote at the embassies. So they can also have these other citizens to be registered and to apply and to be able to vote at the embassies. But properly evaluated, proper rules in place. It should not be something that allows everyone or anyone.
I'm
And
glad
as a
you.
first step, we
Sorry,
can
please
see
go
how
on.
this goes. This should be a temporary procedure. So if they allow them to vote, that should come from a legislative procedure, and the legislative procedure should be a temporary procedure. Should have a time limit of a certain period, and US also has cancellation of voting rights for felonies and other things. So that type of legal procedures should also be placed on it so that the vote can be canceled if somebody is found to be a terrorist or somebody dangerous or somebody involved with dangerous activities such as money laundering and all other negative activities that can be problematic. So it should be very legally designed, and it should come from legislature, not really administrative procedure. It should not come from some administrative draft. It should come from legislature with lots of caution and lots of rules.
I'm glad you also mentioned the point about dual citizenship. Now, this again has been debated and discussed for a long, long time. I wonder what you think about it was because of this great demand for dual citizenship that India actually introduced this entire PIO system so that you get all the rights. You can go back whenever you want. You can maintain whatever property you want and so on and so forth. You can even go back and work. You can take up a job in India. Fulfill professional duties and so on and so forth. The only thing that you can't do is vote. That was the only thing that was kept away. Everything else you can do. And that, this right was extended not only to the people themselves, but also their children, their spouses often, and so on and so forth, right? This entire system was designed to help this process. Talk to me a little bit about this dual citizenship. I mean, do you see that as the eventual, inevitable, final step of the PIO process? Do you see that happening, or do you think we'll stop at PIO? What do you think is the demand among the Indian community?
For now, it seems the government of India is slower and conservative in its approach. But the NRI population is thinking it will be nice to have political rights in India and participation in the political arena. NRI are interested because they are coming, they are investing, they are participating in many other ways. They are also paying taxes. NRI accounting is one of the big contributor to Indian economy. So they're doing everything that positively allowed for now. So generally, they are interested in taking more practical steps, become a participant. So there is an interest in that. But dual citizenship is not there yet. But it's a good way to go, I think, because the societies are becoming more open societies. And for the countries that have dual citizenship, it hasn't been a negative consequence. It still is a positive consequence. For example, Philippines, because it's an Asian country, I'm taking the example of Philippines. You will find Filipinos in everywhere across the world, not just America. You will find them everywhere. Because it makes it easy for them. The Philippines actually makes it easy for them to travel, easy for them to vote, easy for them to maintain their contacts with their home in Philippines. So I don't see that is a big danger, or there is a big threat to democracy if NRIs are provided a way to move forward with their interest, with their wishes for participation in democracy. But it can come at a slower pace. But some phase, some discussion, some initiation is important.
Let me come back now as we, come towards the end of our conversation. Let me come back to the Indian community. Like I said, an extremely prosperous, extremely successful community, especially in America, a community that's really doing well. And more people from that community are also, all these years it was in academia, in business, in technology, in, various other fields, in the literature and the arts, in history, your field, but now increasingly also in politics. You're seeing more and more people take the step forward and say, we want to be part of the political system too and contribute there. How is that panning out, Professor Vemsani? Do you think there is a real mood change among the Indian community in America that it's high time we also got our voice heard within the domain of politics and not just support or not support, as the case may be, from the outside?
Right. Exactly. Indian communities getting interested, more vocal in American politics as well as more vocal in UK politics. And you have seen Prime Minister Rishi Sunak taking the reins in British Parliament. So Indian community has become successful, has entered political arena, has become vocal in their demands and representing their voices. And naturally, they are also interested in representing Indian voices and Indian interests in India itself, because there is a feeling that the political forces in India have lagged behind in reforms, especially constitutional reforms and many other aspects of Indian penal code and legal system. Many of the aspects are still left in colonial era. They're lagging in their colonial era. So they really want to participate, really want to take an active role, and really want to contribute to the Indian political arena, Indian system of administration, as well as India moving forward. I think it's a valuable group. NRIs are valuable contributors in the form of wealth generation as well as intelligentsia. Most of them are well educated. It will be useful to draw upon their experiences, to draw upon their perspectives on moving forward for India. So I don't see too much of negative. Probably initially it might seem negative, but it will all be worked out as soon as judicial reforms or other reforms take place, and as soon as these are worked out. So there might be negative in the beginning, but I don't think that lasting forever. I would think that will be a positive contribution to India. India will benefit from drawing from every section.
Finally, then, coming back to the topic with which we began, Professor Vemsani. So essentially, you're saying that, there could be a case and should be a case, perhaps, that NRIs, especially people who continue to hold Indian passport, even before we go into the PIO section of the story, but at least people who continue to hold Indian passport with checks and balances and with, measures, security measures and other measures in place, could perhaps, be given the right to participate in Indian elections. That could be a beginning of a new, era of, conjoining, in a sense, this wonderful NRI community with their homeland, with their motherland, so to speak. I think it's a great idea, and thank you for your comments. Any last comments on this, Professor Vemsani?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Hindolji. Uh, my only wish is that India considers this and takes positive steps towards involving NRIs into the political process. That's a
Wonderful.
positive. Thank you.
Wonderful. As always, very erudite, very insightful, and very balanced. Professor Lavanya Vemsani, thanks very much for joining us from the United States with your comments on whether NRIs should be given voting rights in India. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you, Hindol.